All right, if you're following along in the book, I'm on page 607, Chapter 13, Handling Events. Again, you will not be tested on this. No written test, no hands-on test. I'm going over it for completeness. We're going to write 2 short programs that are from this chapter, okay? So we talk about event handling, we talk about delegates, how to declare your own events and use the built-in event handler, how to handle control component events, mouse and keyboard events, managing multiple controls, and learning how to continue on if you want to find out even more about this. All right, some of this you've heard before. All right, C# is an example of an event-driven language. In other words, the program runs, and especially if it's a GUI program, it sits there and waits for you to do something. Once you do it, click a button or do whatever, the program reacts if indeed you put code in there to make it do something. All right? If you've added no code, nothing's going to happen. I mean, it might look like a button is pushed in, but nothing will really happen in the program. And it says the actions that occur during the execution of a program mean they're at runtime. Now, this may not sound like a big thing to you, but I just want to show you this. This is what we're going to create in just a couple minutes. Don't even worry about it. But the point is, right now in my program, if you look on the screen, I'm in design mode. All right? Once I do this, now I'm in run mode. All right? If there had been an error in my program, so I'm gonna purposely put an error in here. Let's see. Hopefully it'll generate an error. It didn't. There. Now, okay, so I showed you I was in design mode, then I was in run mode. This is break mode. Those are the 3 modes that you can be in, all right, when you are working inside of Visual Studio. Ideally, you're never going to get into break mode, but I mean, let's face it, it happens occasionally. All right. Again, we've talked about event-driven languages. All right, C# is an example of an event-driven language. It's a language that waits for an event to happen, and then it responds to that event based on whether or not you've added code to make it respond to that event or not. All right. Now, maybe I'm boring you, but this is new. Okay? They put a button here that just, it's got nothing in it, basically. Okay? And they talk about an event handler. You may have seen this before, you may not have. But the idea is, we've done this. Okay, right now this says hello in here, and you've got change label. Well, when you click the change label, it changes it from hello to goodbye. That's no big thing. You all get that. But what they talk about next is something we have not yet talked about, and that's this. All right? The sender is basically who generated the event. In this case, it's the button. The arguments are any arguments that get passed. In this case, there won't be any. But if you look here, and this is taken from page 610 in the book, so notice what they're putting in here. Sender.toString. And it's letting you know it's systems.windows.forms.button. It's the button that did this. So the sender that you see up here is what control basically caused the event to happen. All right? And for args, event args E, if you say E.toString, there aren't any arguments. But it's letting you know it's system.windows.forms.mouse arguments. Again, I mentioned this earlier in the semester, when that would be important would be if you were building a game. If you were building a game and you wanted to know the mouse coordinates as you move your mouse around the screen. Maybe you're trying to shoot an alien or something. All right? So, at least you've heard that. Now, what's weird about this language, and weird's not the right word, but it's the one I'm going to use, is that in many ways, the language is stupid. And what I mean by that is it doesn't know how to do things by itself. If you look right here at these two lines that are in gray, these are in some of those internal files, not the ones that you create, but it says here, if you go into the designer, you'll see that a line that looks like that. And what that line says is, okay, if you click this button, this is the event that you want to have happen. It's not smart enough to know to wire up you clicking the button with making the code that's in the button's click event work. I don't know if that makes sense or not. This literally is called wiring up the button. And all it's doing is it's establishing a relationship between the button itself and the click event for the button. All right, I'd say if that doesn't make any sense to you, just reread pages 611 and 612. All right? Now, much of the rest of the chapter talks about what are called delegates. Let me just start talking about delegates by saying this. You never, ever, 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 ever need to use them. The reason that you might want to use them is what they can do is when you are running the program, when you're at runtime. You know, I've given you examples like this before. You're going down the street. All right? The street ends. You can go that way or you can go that way. You don't have any choice. Let's assume it's one way so you can't back up. All right? We've used things like if this is true, go that way, otherwise go that way. Sometimes, though, you want to let the program figure out what it is you want to do based on what's going on as the program's running. All right? For instance, and I could never understand this, but where I live in Lake St. Louis, when I go into downtown Lake St. Louis, if you'd call it that, but when I go down there and I come back, there's like 6 ways I can get back. All right? And they all get me basically to the same way. So so why am I telling you this? Well, if normally, let's say that I go here, and this isn't the way it is, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And let's assume all of them get me to right there, which is where I want to go. And let's say I almost always take this way, because it's the fastest. I go here, and it gets me over to here. But now, today, there's a car accident there. And I can see traffic is really backed up. Well, I don't want to go that way then. That makes sense? So I'm letting what's happening at the moment dictate what I do or don't do. That's what delegates allow you to do. They allow you to choose alternative courses of action based on events. All right? So this is what I want you to do. I want everybody right now. I want you to start up a brand new Visual Studio project. All right? And I'm going to start up a new one myself. It will be, just so you know, it will be a console project, and just call it Greet. G-R-E-E-T. Greet. All right? So just like you, File, New, Project, and Greet. All right? If yours comes up and it looks like mine will look in about 15 seconds, there. That's where you should be. Everybody do that? Problems? All right. Now, I just mentioned this to you. Go to where I sent you that email. This is what's in that email. I gave you some stuff in here about what a delegate is. So I'd like you to grab all that stuff. It's all the stuff within the comments. I'd like you to grab all that and copy it to the clipboard. Not the bottom stuff, not all of it, not where it says declare an initialized program, not that. So up till there. So grab that stuff, copy it to the clipboard, go back to your program, your Greet program, and right at the top of your program, paste it in. You don't have to pretty it up. You can pretty it up. I don't care. You are turning this in. But I'm not that concerned with how pretty your comment looks. But I want to go over the comment. I took this from a website. I didn't like it all the way our author explained anything in this chapter. So I went out and tried to find alternative resources. Now, I don't want to read to you, but it's kind of telling you what I said before, that delegates allow you to choose different courses of action based on the current situation. All right? Last example, because it's very similar to what I just gave you. Let's assume that tomorrow, and I don't, but let's pretend for a second that tomorrow I am told that I am to report to the St. Louis campus, all right, for something special. Okay, so we got your class covered. You go to St. Louis. We want you there by 8 o'clock, all right? Typically, if I leave by 7, I can get down there, even if it's close. Let's say it's 6:45. So I leave. I know I'm going to have plenty of time, all right? I think you all get this. I'd have my choice. I could go down there and I could take what, like 64, or I could take 70. Well, if I put the radio on and it says there's a massive accident on 70 East, right around, let's say, exit 214 near Lake St. Louis, and all roads are closed right there, I'm probably not going to go that way. Does that make sense? All right. A delegate allows you to check things that are going on as the program is running and say, do this, or do this, or do this, based on that. So I put this in, like I said, I grabbed it from another website, different things about delegates, and I'll let you read those as you're so inclined to do so. And if you're not, then you won't. All right. Now I'm going to jump back for just a second to the book. And here's the example that they give in the book. I found this example confusing. You may not find it confusing. But I'm on page 614 in your book. All right? So when you look in here, this is what's new. Please look up on the screen. See this in blue, in the powder blue? We're declaring a delegate right there at the top of our program. That delegate is called greeting delegate. Then we use it down here. We create 2 greeting delegates. One that's called first del, one that's called second del. And then we set them either equal to hello or to goodbye. So this should say hello, Kathy. This should say goodbye, Bob. The point is, notice on here, we're calling greet method. And greet method says the greeting is, and then this GD name, it's going to basically say what? The greeting is hello, Kathy. The greeting is goodbye, Bob. The way that it got hello, Kathy, was it called hello. The way that it got goodbye, Bob, is that it called goodbye. All right? And it did that because we told it, in this case, to call hello, and we told it, in this case, to call goodbye. Now, I'm not going to be that stupid that I'm going to say, hey, does that make sense? Because it may make no sense. But I thought, okay, how can I change this program so maybe it would make some sense to you? All right? So what I did was this. I made changes in my program, my copy of this, where I said, you know what, I don't like the way any of this is done. But I'm going to generate a random number between 1 and 3. If it's 1, I'm going to say good morning. If it's 2, I'm going to say good afternoon. And if it's a 3, I'm going to say good evening. All right? But that wasn't enough. I also wanted to put a name in there. But I didn't like the way they did that. And I didn't want you to have to hard code names. And, again, you may laugh at this. I just thought it was funny. I mean, in so many ways, the internet is so freaking cool. Because I typed in here, generate 50 random names. Put that in, and it came up with this. And I don't remember which one of these I even used, but listofrandomnames.com, it might have been that one. 50, type both, first names, no, so I wanted both. Click generate, boom. Then it generates those names for you. All right, which I thought was cool. Why am I telling you that? Because when you look, that isn't good. When you look at your email, I'll have to fix that in a minute. But when you look at your email that I sent you, the other thing that's in that email that I sent you that I'll find in a minute are 50 names. So I'd like you to grab those 50 names. It starts with declare and initialize program constants. I'd like you to grab all of that, copy it to the clipboard, go back to your program, your greet, and go stick it right into main. Don't worry about the static. We'll fix that in just a minute. I probably told you to put it in the wrong spot. That's my fault. But we'll fix it. Don't worry about it. It'll be fixed literally in a matter of seconds. The good news is we now have half the program written. All right? And I didn't want you to have to do that. The bad news is, if you look up on the screen, I want you to take these two lines, the static void main, those two lines, cut them, and paste them in right there. All right, so in other words, that stuff shouldn't have been declared in main that I screwed up. Well, there's a first. All right. There's your 50 names. And I wanted to mention something to you. I wanted this set up. I changed it around a little bit. I wrote it and then I rewrote it. Notice 0 has no name in it. I did that on purpose. And I made the max names 51. There are 51 entries in here. The first one's empty. Why did I do that? You'll see it in just a minute. All right. So one thing that we have to do is at the top of our program, above where it says namespace greet, above that line, all right, I want you to hit enter and type in delegate void greeting delegate string S. What that means is someplace later on in the program, we're going to be using that. All right, we're going to put this in just a couple minutes. We probably have 30 lines approximately to type. It's not terrible. All right. So does everybody have this line here that says delegate void greeting delegate string S? And everybody has these names that are in here. That's all above main. Everybody has that, correct? All right. Then we want to do one more thing. We want to put this also above main. All right. We're above main here. And we're going to write, we are going to write 3 short routines right now. All right. Public static void good morning. And that should just do a right line that says good morning. Why am I getting this? You know why I'm getting this, because I need to go up to the top and do my using static system.console. I wish they would just put that in there by default. All right. Okay. So, after you've written that, copy it 3 times and have a good morning, a good afternoon, and a good evening. All right. Now we literally have about a little more than 20 lines to type in, and we'll be done. Right now there's nothing in main, so if we ran this, absolutely nothing would happen. Does that make sense to everyone? There's no code in main. Even though we've got code up here, there's no code in main. All right, so good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good evening. That's good. All right, now we get to come down to main. All right. So now in main, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to declare and initialize my local variables. They're local because they're defined in main. Int greetNum equals 0, string greetName equals the empty string. Now I'm going to create 3 of these delegates. We haven't used this greetNum and this greetName yet. We're going to in a minute, but that's why it's got its squigglies. We have to write a for loop now that's got, I don't know, lines in it, but we'll just keep going. Would please. Okay, we do have max persons, so I don't have to say 10. I can say max persons. All right, I couldn't remember if we had already copied that in or not, so. Okay, I'll let you catch back up. This line right here, that line, is going to end up generating a number between 1 and 3. If it's a 1, we want to say good morning. If it's a 2, we want to say good afternoon. If it's a 3, we want to say good evening. Does that make sense? This is going to generate a number between 0 and 50. All right? And actually, I think it's between 1 and 50. And that's going to grab one of those names. Okay? Did I have to do a random ram twice? No. I tried to keep it as random as I possibly could. So again, you don't have to add this unless you want to. Generate a 1. Good morning. 2. Good afternoon. Or 3. Good evening. All right. And this, God bless you. Generate a number to use to go into the names array and pull out a name. All right. Not the greatest of comments. They work. All right. Then what I want to do is I want to do a switch on that greeting number. On that 1 or 2 or 3. All right. So again, this should be a 1 or 2 or 3. If it's a 1, you already know this. I already said it. We want to call the greet method, which we haven't written yet, so we're going to get an error there. Don't worry about it. We'll fix it in a minute. And we want to pass it D1 greet no and break. Again, you'll get an error because we haven't written that greet method yet. It's a grand total of about 5 lines. Case 2. Case 3. It should not physically be possible for this default that I'm going to write now to ever be hit. It should never be possible for it to be hit. But just in case, I'm putting in a default. All right? If yours looks like this, but you've got these 4 errors, that's fine. We literally have 4 more lines to write. 1, 2, 3, 5 more lines to write. 2 of those lines are curly braces. All right? So that's D1, D2, D3, and D1. We'll just say good morning if somehow there is an error. So all that's left is to go in and write this greet method, which we're going to do in just a minute. Everybody all caught up? All right. Pardon my English. I just said CRAP and it's on the tape. So can you go back up here, please? I'm sorry. These shouldn't say greet number. These should say greet name. That's my error. Everybody hear that? Please change this. Go back up to the switch statement and change all of them so that instead of saying greet num, they all say greet name. That was my error. I think we're missing a curly there. All right. All right. 2 more lines of code and we're done. Right line, the greeting is GD name. Let me make sure it works. Of course there were errors. Somehow I lost some of my names here. So let me go back to my email and grab those names. Okay, that fixed everything, it looks like. So let me run this again, and I don't have a read line in there. You're going to need a read line in yours. So after it prints all that, right there. All right, let me try it again. Right? Now, I don't expect you to be wowed by that. This is, again, the example they had in the book, except I made some changes to it. So let's look at the changes that I made. I gave you the comments on what is a delegate. We had to add the using static system.console. All right. We created a delegate up here. What this said was, as the program is running, we want to be able to dynamically generate either a good morning, a good afternoon, or a good evening. That's what this is. That's what this does. All right. We created an array that has 51 names in it. First name is empty. The other ones were randomly generated by the site that I showed you. We said that we're going to have 10 people. With each of those 10 people, we want to either say good morning followed by their name, or good afternoon followed by their name, or good evening followed by their name. Where it says S right here, that's their name. That's the string. All right. Then we came in and we said, while the program's running, manually, all right, I shouldn't even say manually, randomly generate either a good morning object, or a good afternoon object, or a good evening object. All right. So again, while the program is running, we want to be able to have, when we ran it the first time, if we run it again, it's going to be all different. The names will be different. Whether it says good morning, good afternoon, or good evening will be different. That's what a delegate is. So again, we came through here after we created those delegates. We said, come in here and do this. All right, so we've got here, we're telling it to do this right here 10 times. Generate a number between 1 and 3. Generate a number between 1 and 50. Based on that number that's between 1 and 3, all right, if it's a 1, call the delegate 1 object, which is the good morning for the name. If it's a 2, call the delegate 2 objects, which is good afternoon with a name. If it's a 3, generate or call a good evening object with a name. The default should never be hit, but just to be sure, we said if it's somehow for some goofy reason it is, just do a good morning. All right. Then what's happening in here is the system is figuring out, based on what we did, it's already figured out it's a good morning, or it's a good afternoon, or it's a good evening. This could be written better, I think, without using delegates. This is the example that the author gave. So I decided to use that one. So again, notice the greeting is good morning, good afternoon, good morning, good morning, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, good evening, etc. All right? Did I expect you to get much out of that? No, but you have been exposed to what a delegate is. Again, by me taking the example that was in your book and rewriting it in a way that I thought at least would make more sense to you when explaining to you what a delegate was. Maybe I succeeded, maybe I failed. All right? You can create what's called a composed delegate by adding two delegates together. So notice what they did. They added together the hello and the goodbye. So it says both hello, Kathy, and goodbye, Kathy. All right? Again, would you want to do that? That isn't the point. The point is you can do it. All right? I had all sorts of problems trying to get the you do it things to work. I don't think they're well written. So I said, pardon my French, after a while I said, you know what, screw it. And I didn't do it. All right? So, jumping up to page 622, declaring your own events and handlers and using the built-in event handler. This is really actually very important. When we went in and we did things like creating our own classes, okay? I don't know if you remember this, but I told you this a while ago. If I create a class called person, okay, and I say every person has a height, a weight, an eye color, and a hair color. Those four things. Every person can eat and can drink. That makes sense? That means a person can't sleep because I didn't give them the ability to do that. They don't have a gender because I didn't give them that. So when you create an object, the object only can work with what you give it. But if you want something special to happen with that object, you can create your own event handlers in order to do that. All right? And that's what they talk about in here. And you can set it up so that when you've got a brand new object, it does whatever it is you want it to do. So notice the example that's here all the way up on page 625. All right? On page 625, what they've done there is they create a student object, and then they change their ID number, and then they change their grade point. So notice what happened. By default, this isn't smart enough to do this unless you give it the ability. You might say, well, wait, we got our stuff to work before we didn't do this. Because what they're showing you in here is rather than using getters and setters like we did, another way you can change it is by creating your own event handlers. All right? All right. I'm going to have us jump all the way, please, to page 632. So up about 7 or 8 pages. On that page it says, handling control component events. All right? And what they're saying on here is this. If you look on the bottom of page 632, all of page 633, or I guess the first half, those are different things you can program in. You can program those in. If you look up on the screen, please. We're going to take a break in a couple minutes, but when we do, when we come back, we're going to write this. I didn't want that to happen. Okay, so, yeah, I don't want to bring it up to 2017. Yes. And again, in many ways, this is a very, very, very simplistic program. All right? It's a guessing game. You say, well, we've done those before. Yeah, and don't worry about it. So we're supposed to guess what number was randomly generated. So I'm just going to guess 3. I'm wrong. So what happened? Okay? It told me I lost. Make sense? Now it generated another number. Now I could guess 3 again, or I could put my mouse over the 3. And it says it's not 3. So I know now it's 1, 2, 4, or 5, right? So I'll try 5. I'll probably be wrong again, and I'm wrong again. I can keep playing this game. All right, notice I've lost 3 times. Eventually, hopefully, eventually, I'll win. There. That obvious what's happening there? All right. The reason that I'm showing that to you is twofold. First of all, every time I click on a different button, it's generating what's called a check changed event. So we're going to put some code in the check changed event. The other thing is, did you notice? See how that's got a 6 and there's not a 6 here? Because that's a hidden button. I want to make sure that when I start, that none of these are chosen. So I put another button in there and I choose that one that you can't see. Then as soon as you do this, all right, as soon as you do this, boom, it comes in. And again, I can keep playing. I put some delays in there. This is the program that's one of the programs that's at the end of the chapter. But I added some stuff to it because I thought their program stunk, and this one's a little cooler. All right, it'll let me show you how to add timers and stuff. All right, so we'll do that after the break. All right, but before we do that, let's finish the chapter, then we'll take a break. All right. So what they show in here, and I'm going to turn up again, all the way to page 635, and on page 635, they've programmed here this button so when you click it, it both changes that label and it changes the color of the button. All right? Just to show you that, right, because basically what we've done so far is virtually 100% of the time when we've coded something, it's been in a buttons click event. But the author is trying to show you that there's other events that happen on the page, and you can have your program respond to those if you want to, need to, have to. Including, on page 637, you can respond to mouse events. Did you notice, maybe you did, maybe you didn't, did you notice that when I ran this, if I take my mouse and put it over here, make me a liar. All right. Now I'm going to take my mouse, I'm going to put it over the number 3. And for whatever reason it's, oh, put it here. See that? Try it again. All right. So I come over here, boom, I lose. Okay. Now it says put your mouse here for a hint. See where it says put your mouse here for a hint? See how that changed? All right. We made that change by putting code in there to make a change. You're going to see that after the break. Not only can you do it for mouse events, you can also do it for, so that's mouse click events. You can do it for keyboard events. You know, when you put a keyboard up, you put a keyboard down, etc. This is really, really important. All right? And the reason that I'm telling you that this is really, really important is because the author doesn't. But I can set it up. So let's say that I've got a text box in a program, and I tell you to enter your age. You with me? Okay. I can set it up so I check every time you put in an entry. And if you put in something that's not a number, I can just refuse to accept it. So you can keep hitting any non-numeric key and nothing will happen. All right. I can also set it up, let's say that, you know, I could set limits in there. That maybe I say that the biggest number you can put in there is 125. And the smallest number you can put in there is 1. So if you try to put a negative number in, we won't accept it. If you try to put a 0 in, we won't accept it. That's what they're talking about in here. You can do that all based on keyboard events. I wish she did a little better job of explaining it. I tried to. All right. On 642, they talk about focus. You know what focus is, right? Only one control can get the focus at a time. All right. And then finally, the author says, if you want to learn more, there's a heck of a lot more to learn about these events than what they've just discussed with you. All right. So let's see, where are we here? That's not too